Okay, we're ready to go.
How many we got on?
Got Herb, Ray, Gina, John, Ben, and Paul. So we've got 6.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. Turn it over to you, Trace. The meeting will be about awarding the bid for the sewer project at the industrial park.
Yep, so you all got the bids to review. I don't know. Oh, Chris Lewis is here on the phone as well. Chris, did you want to go over the summary of the bids real quick?
Sure, I can do that. Pull it up. I realized I didn't have it open. I have the drawings open, but not the bid results. So.
Sorry,
Okay, so I got them open here. So we got 5 bids, but only 4 for phase 1. One bidder only bid on phase 2. And overall, I mean, I feel I was pleased with the bids. The spread was good. We didn't really have any crazy outliers or anything. There were a lot of good questions that came during the bid process. We had a pre-bid meeting, and then several we issued 2 addendums during the bid in response to some questions we got. So in the end, Highlander was the low bidder overall at $910,000. They were quite a bit higher. I mean, everybody was quite a bit higher. I guess the one outlier in the bidding was pretty low on phase 1 only. But then they were higher overall than Highlander on phase 2 and overall. So I guess, one of the questions is today awarding the bids separately versus together. Obviously in the short term, there is a cost to awarding it just Highlander over Lane. I think there is just some advantage to long term to just working with one contractor. You kind of develop a familiarity. For when it comes into phase 2, they'll know exactly how things were left off and constructed. So that'll make kind of that integration easier. But there's a slight cost adder to doing that. But otherwise, yeah, I guess I'm just here to answer any questions or provide input or whatever you guys need me to kind of help review.
This is Herb Marshall. I talked to him this morning to see if there was any chance that we could possibly some way lower the phase 1 from Highlander. As long as they are the lowest bidder, it would seem like it's legal if we could talk with them. Did you get a chance to talk with them at all?
No, I did send him an email, and I don't know if they're on the call here or not. I didn't see Bill or anyone, but I did send him an email, and I asked. I kind of phrased it in the email 2 ways. One is if they identify anything, value engineering that they think they can maybe save some money if they do it a little bit differently, and if we could certainly review and determine if that would be acceptable. The other is if they could possibly reduce the cost of phase 1 if there's some sort of guarantee of getting phase 2. And I don't know how that would be structured or how we could do that. But if they could, save, some money or save some cost by having a guarantee of getting both phases awarded, and we could kind of take those savings out of phase 1 because I know the funding sources are different. So those are just the 2 options, I think. And there's nothing, as far as I know, I guess I don't know all the rules in New York, but I mean, you guys have a lot of flexibility in how you can kind of award this bid. So there's nothing wrong with asking a contractor if there's opportunities for savings.
I did ask Bill to be available at this time if we want to call him. I didn't have him join the call, but I could call him if you wanted to discuss with him. I'm not sure that negotiations are where we want to, if now is the time to do that, but we could certainly, if there are specific questions, we could certainly get him on the phone.
Sure. Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Tracy?
If you want to turn it into a negotiation or kind of handle that as like a separate conversation after this meeting or something like that.
It would just seem like we should try to do it now. After we award the bid to them, it's a little bit late to talk them into less money.
I don't think an open meeting is the right place to be having negotiations, but that, I don't know if Rick has other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree. In New York, I mean, the bids are the bids. After it's awarded, if there's any type of discussions that could be undertaken by the parties for change orders that could decrease the scope of the project or decrease some of the unit prices because of a change or something, that could be something discussed. But I'm very uncomfortable negotiating prior, without a change in scope of the project or terms of the project, prior to awarding a bid. Based on the bid that was published, the board can award, reject any and all bids, which is standard language. They could award the bid in parts, phase one to one contractor, I believe, phase two and another, or one contractor for both phases.
Ray, if I might speak, Ben.
Yeah.
This is,
Hey,
there
Tracy?
wasn't that alternate. So I agree we can, award each phase separately. What I might recommend, or what might go out there for discussion, would be to have a resolution that awards the phase one to Highlander and phase two to the lowest bidder on phase two, predicated on the idea that Tracy and our engineers could go to Highlander and if they can find some value engineering and things to get the phase two to equal what the low bid would be if you combine the two low bids, and Highlander could have the whole thing. I think we can pass a resolution authorizing Tracy and Rick and our engineers to go forward and do that, and not really cost us any more time. That's just my idea. I don't know if that works or not.
Is there a motion?
I'd be happy to make that a motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
I would second it.
Discussion.
John, did you have something? I muted you because you were getting some feedback, but it sounded like you were getting ready.
I did. I was going to ask about the feedback. Has somebody got a cell phone and a computer next to it? I could barely understand you guys. Am I the only one?
Yeah, I only get it when.
Yeah, there's a howling sound.
Yeah, John, I'm only getting the feedback when you're unmuted.
Oh, really? Okay. And then it's me. Okay.
Motion though, Tracy.
It's always John's fault.
Okay. Is there further discussion? John, was that discussion?
If we award both of those bids today, how close is Tracy to getting some additional financing for the second phase?
Good question.
So we can really only award the phase one today because of the way that the EDA funding works. We can, state an interest in, maintaining the two phases together with the same contractor, but I would probably not want to actually award both right now so as not to jeopardize the EDA application. We're working with CNY Regional Planning and Development Board on that application to the EDA funding, and I'm hoping we can have that in this month, and then be able to, and then it would be a matter of getting them the response from them, which might take some time, but the application is in the works right now.
So you're recommending we just award the one major bid today, then, phase one?
Just the phase one, which
Okay,
is the
how's
smaller
that go?
component of the project.
How's that go with Ben's motion?
That doesn't go with Ben's motion.
That's right.
I will withdraw my motion and make a motion to award phase one to Highlander.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Gina.
Yep.
Further discussion on phase one of the sewer line project?
Yes. So, Highlander was not the lowest bidder on phase one. Am I correct?
It would be the low bid based on the entire project.
Yes. So I think the motion, I think to protect the IDA, we have to reflect that in the motion, because on its face, we're awarding a bid of phase one for $81,290, and the lowest bid was $53,200. And we don't have anything in the record to say why we're not awarding it to Lane Construction. So I think we have to elaborate, either in discussion or as part of the motion, why we're awarding phase.
So could the motion just reflect, awarding phase one to Highlander based on the total project cost of phase 1 and 2?
Actually, Blue Heron is the cheapest.
Right.
Yeah, but we also wouldn't get a sewer.
Right. Rick, want to chime in on that, Rick?
No, I like the way Tracy was adding to that motion that could be reflected in the minutes. So it's anticipated that we're going to award the entire project, phases 1 and 2, to Highlander Construction based on the overall lowest bid, which is $829,250.
910,540 altogether.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I'm sorry.
Yep.
910,540. However, due to a recommendation by our director in regard to our funding source, we are only awarding the bid to Highlander for phase 1 only at this time. But it's the pleasure of the board that Highlander will be also doing phase 2, but we're limiting the actual acceptance to phase 1 solely because of funding restrictions. Is that fair, Tracy?
Yes, I would say that's accurate.
I would, if I was Lane, I'd probably challenge you. If I really wanted the job and I was Lane, I would challenge you.
Tracy, what is the downside to award the overall bid to Highlander for phases 1 and 2?
EDA could say the project's happening and not fund it.
Well,
I mean, it would indicate to EDA that the project will happen without their funding, and
Right.
that could jeopardize their willingness to fund the project.
Tracy, would you go over again the schedule for the approval of the second part of the funding?
The application, I'm hoping will get submitted this month, and then it'll take, at least a few weeks, if not a couple months, to get an award notification back from them.
So it could be as long as 2.5 months?
We're probably looking at summertime before we know. Yeah.
I mean, just to
Can we make the motion so that we're awarding both phases with phase 2 being contingent upon the funding?
Rick?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to recommend to the board. Thank you, Tracy. And when you say funding, though, I want to be as specific as possible. Is the entire phase 2, is it contingent upon entire phase 2 being that we were awarded a grant, and by whom?
Tracy, we already have 20% of the funding for phase 2, right?
Yes.
And
so
how much additional funding are you asking for? Or
EDA application would be 50% of the total project.
50 plus the 20 or 50 including the 20?
So we would be asking EDA for an additional 50 on top of ESD's 20.
Okay.
So do we need
Can I
a new
give this a
motion?
shot? Could I give this a shot as a possible motion?
Sure.
So,
Well, actually, we got a motion on the floor. If Ben wants to withdraw another motion.
I guess we've been good at withdrawing motions, so I'll withdraw that and Rick have at it.
okay. So, based on our executive director's information provided, the board could consider a motion to award phases 1 and 2 of this sewer project for a total amount of $910,540, which is the overall lowest bid for construction of both phases 1 and 2, to Highlander Construction. However, phase 2 acceptance is contingent on the Cuba County Industrial Development Agency receiving what percent, Tracy? Another
50% EDA funding.
50% of the overall cost of phase 2 from the New York State Environmental.
US.
I'm sorry.
It's the U.S. Economic Development Administration.
Yes, it's contingent upon that funding. So that would be the motion.
Who's speaking?
We'll see.
You sure?
Was that Rick or was that board member?
I think it was background noise.
I'll try supporting that
If you
motion.
guys are on TV. Are you on mute? Oh, I missed it.
Tracy?
Yes.
Was that a board member who just made that motion, or was that Rick?
I don't think anybody made a motion. I think we're getting
that
some
was
background noise.
That was Ben. I said I'd make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded on the resolution. Is there just more discussion now?
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chairman, this is Rick Galbato again. So as a result of this motion, if it passes, the executive director, myself, our engineer would be authorized to sign the necessary documents to effectuate the phase 1 of this project after review and approval of the insurance documents. But as to phase 2, we would not be authorized to execute any documents to begin that process until the contingency of the funding is satisfied.
Okay. You want that as part of the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, just under discussion, I think it's sufficient.
Okay.
So Taylor will just reflect that in the minutes.
Okay. Anybody else have any discussion?
I would just ask the engineer if there's any problem with postponing the second phase for that length of time. How long, is there a time limit on the bids?
So during the bidding process, we indicated that the second phase of the project would commence at the end of summer. I think we set a start date of July or like an award date of like end of July. So if we meet that timeline, there should not be any issues with the pricing. I guess if it were to be delayed much beyond that, it could potentially be an issue. But you know, if it's as long as we kind of get started or can make an award by the end of summer, I think you're okay.
I think Tracy needs to know that we need a final approval on that funding to meet that timetable, though.
I am very well aware of the timetable, Herb. Thank you.
Okay.
Further discussion?
I'll just say too, I think during the bid process, some uncertainty of that phase 2 timing may have led one or two bidders to not submit bids. But you know, we couldn't commit to a date, so we just had to do the best we could on when we thought the funding would be available.
Yeah. So we were very upfront with the contractors during the process, to Chris's point, about what we're going through and what we're trying to accomplish, and the timelines and the realities of this situation, and you know, the need for this initial phase more immediately because of the need at CMI, and then the potential lag in time frame between the two phases. So we were very upfront about this in those conversations. So I don't think anyone would be surprised by any of this.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I also wanted to mention to the board, under the bid documents, only insurance requirements are required for us to review. And I know many of you on the board are very familiar with public projects, but under the bid documents, there was no requirement for a payment or performance bond. And I just wanted the board to be aware of that. I think that's my understanding was that's the norm in Wisconsin. They're not required. I know it's the norm here that they are required, but I wanted to advise the board of that. Just to make sure you're okay with that. So under the bid documents, there's no payment performance bonds that are required that the contractor will have to provide us. Just the insurance requirements, including workers' comp.
I would say that's an absolute no-no from my standpoint. We would be derelict by not requiring those items, I think.
This is Ben. I disagree. I've been doing these projects for the last few years, and $1 million project, you're not going to pay them the money until you're satisfied with the work. So I'm comfortable with it. It's the way I've been doing business for the last 3 years. So either way.
Okay. That's your opinion. My opinion's the opposite.
Yep.
Is there any other discussion? Tracy, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Right.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, let me just chime in. I agree with Paul on the performance bond.
Okay, well, we can go back to Highlander and see what the cost on that is and get a cost from them on that.
Okay, thank you. By the way, all the echo is gone, so whoever stepped off or got off the call, I can hear you clearly now.
If anything changed.
Hey, it did in my mind.
Okay.
Do you want to put language in there about performance bond, Rick?
So, is there an amendment to the pending motion then to add that we would we're requiring the contractor Highlander to provide us with a payment and performance bond, or just a performance bond?
There hasn't been an amendment yet.
I know, I understand.
I would say both.
Okay,
I agree.
are you proposing an amendment, Paul?
Well, whatever Rick says, in order to include the bond, the performance and payment bonds, that would be what I would request. However, he wants to fit it in there.
If it was necessary to have a bond and it was not written in the bid proposals, how can we make that necessary now?
Rick?
Well, under the terms of the bid, we have the option to reject any and all bids.
Rick, we're not doing that. You've done away with 8 motions already today. Why didn't you review those bids before we got to this point?
This is a reasonable request. I don't know if Mr. Lewis has any comments on that. And, you know, Highlander's a local contractor, and I've dealt with them in Owasco, and they provided these bonds. I would hope it's not a significant issue.
Yeah, I would think you guys have the ability to ask for them to be included. Obviously, they're going to get cost to it, but if we think it's an important thing to have, certainly ask for it. And I think the reason we didn't include it was maybe some confusion on my part. It's typically required even in Wisconsin on like a public bid, but private bidders don't usually require it because you have the option to select your contractor, right? If you're public and you have low bid, you're stuck with whoever the lowest bidder. It could be somebody who's disreputable or you're not familiar with or is in financial difficulties. And there's a certain amount of risk that you have by awarding to whoever the low bidder is versus in a private situation, you can do some background due diligence and select who you want to work with. And I guess I thought maybe you guys had a little bit, you're kind of quasi-public, maybe had a little bit of flexibility, but if that's not the case, I mean, it certainly, you know, it protects your interests, and I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for one.
I would suggest we award the bids from the last motion and that we request from the bidder that they provide this bond.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Ben, though. I mean, you know, we can always hold the payment if we've got an issue. It's kind of late to go ask for a bond now. We need to move this project.
I don't think we need to hold up the project to request the bond. I think the language in the, as Rick was trying to say, I think the language allows us to do that, to request that. It provides enough flexibility for us to ask for that, so I don't think it would actually hold anything up. And I'll take some of the blame on this too. I certainly should have consulted more with Rick on the bid package. So, but I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for that at this point if that is something that the board wants to do. So I don't think we need to hold up the whole project to do that.
Remember that the bonds will guarantee, unless you have it in the language, Rick, will guarantee performance for a period of time. I'm guessing up to a year or more. So it's not only the doing the work as is, but it is guaranteeing that the work is going to work.
Ray, if I might, that's why you withhold a payment. Normally, you withhold about 5% for a year or so you make sure that the project is complete. I guess I would like to ask Rick when the last time he ever collected on a performance bond was.
I don't think I ever have. Maybe there was a threat of one for the Water and Sewer Authority many, many years ago, but that's it. That was a loaded question.
I like the loaded questions. I always like the answer before I ask a question.
Okay, how do you want to proceed?
I have a motion on the table.
Yes, you do.
Call the question.
Very good. Roll call vote, Trace.
Where am I? Sorry. Mr. Reinflesch,
Yes.
Mr. Latinician,
No.
Mr. Vitale,
Yes.
Mr. Lattimore,
No.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood.
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't keeping track. Taylor.
Gina.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It passed.
Gina. Is
Oh,
Gina
Miss
still
Gina.
on?
Oh, I didn't see her.
She like dropped off
She
during the
must have
roll.
stepped away. She
Maybe
left.
that's who we lost, John.
It wasn't me.
Oh, there she is. Gina? Gina, are you there? I think we still lost Gina.
Okay. What's the tally?
So what was the tally?
Oh, I don't know what happened.
Gina. We were just voting on Ben's resolution. Gina?
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, there you are. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Did you have a vote on Ben's resolution?
Here. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Take
Can you
that as a yes.
hear me?
Yeah, you're a little fuzzy or a little robot-y, but we got you.
I
now.
said yes.
Okay.
6 times, but no one heard me.
Okay.
Yes. Way.
Did she vote?
Yes, she voted yes.
Okay, it's 4-2. Right?
Yes.
5-2.
It's 5-2.
5-2.
5-2.
Right.
Okay.
4-2, it passed.
It's 5-2. Pass.
Oh, 5-2, okay.
Yep.
I thought there was somebody missing. Okay, motion is passed, so we'll go ahead with the resolution and with the bid. Is there anything else to come before this body?
Does that mean we're paying for this first phase? Minus the 20%?
Yeah, so we've got the, yes, but we can chat more about the local financing of that. I was planning to have it on the agenda for next week to talk about the local financing, and I've reached out to Kevin Ellis to let him know that there might be a request coming his way.
I would think if we're going to discuss it, it would be nice if he was available at the meeting. I would think we could probably have an in-house meeting next week with most of us.
Oh, in person?
Yes.
Um,
I won't be there.
I would need to probably find I'll look for a location. I'll need to find a location, I think, because I don't think our conference room can host everybody.
I think it would be nice to be able to talk with him and maybe the other plant about this funding business if we could in person. Thank you.
Yep, I'll reach out to them and invite them, and I'll look for a location that's big enough for a group. We can only have, I think, 6 or 7 people in our conference room, so I'll maybe reach out to the town of Aurelius and see if they're available.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further to come before us?
Could I just ask Gina or Tracy, is it true that the mall has been sold? And the reason I ask that now, she had us to discuss selling part of our property. Is it true that it has been sold?
I have not heard that. I heard some, gossip recently that it was for sale again, but I haven't heard that it's sold.
Okay, that takes care of my.
But that doesn't mean Tracy might know better.
I've also heard some gossip, but nothing confirmed.
Okay, that's good enough. Thank you.
There's always gossip around the mall, though.
Oh, really?
All the time.
For sure. Is it a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Or a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tracy.
See you next week.
Talk to you soon.